boy, have you been in the middle of everything, man. I mean, let's walk through, if you don't mind, the first time you got a phone call from the Dolphins. And did they tell you that this was contingent upon something they were working with the Niners, and you had to keep all of that quiet way back in March? Like there was just like an NBA 3-team deal that was going on? Is that really what this was?
I know. It was exciting. You know, I think we tried to talk about it theoretically. Hey, theoretically, would you guys move back if we move back and want to move back up? And then it gets to a point where you're going, all right, dude, like, you're going to have to trust me here because I'm going to have to figure out where you're going so I can figure out if we want to do it.
Right.
And I think that's the great thing about the relationships we have with those two teams is everyone trusted one another, and it really didn't get out until Zach Wilson threw.
That's pretty much it because, because you're like, why would you move out of 6 to go down to 12 if you didn't know who was coming up to 3 and for what and for who? You know, you had to know.
Yeah,
so
we had to get all the information because we had to figure out, all right, here are the players that we want to come. I mean, we had a miserable year, right, Rich? Like, that wasn't fun. And certainly our country had a miserable year, more importantly. But we wanted to come out of this draft and get a difference maker, get someone who really would have huge impact on our football team. And we had to make sure that we were going to do that. And for us and where we sit right now, it's crazy to think, 3 years ago on this show talking about us being world champs. But we knew that for us to get a difference maker and to end up with an additional first-round pick in the 2022 draft where maybe things were a little bit more certain, made sense for our football team and our franchise.
Well, I mean, and obviously Eagles fans were lockstep with you in wanting to get a big-time playmaker or somebody who could make a difference. And when you traded out of 6, I think you're aware in your neck of the woods, people kind of flipping or freaked that you were giving up a chance of Pitts and Chase. And is there any sort of, solace that you take in the fact that subsequently, now in 2020 hindsight, neither would have been there at 6 anyway for you?
Well, I think that we had to make that part of the discussion when we were moving back. Like, what do we really think is going to happen? Obviously, we're not in the Atlanta Falcons or Cincinnati Bengals facility, so we don't know for sure. But when we went through, we thought there was a strong possibility that may occur. And for us, being able to get this pick and the certainty of the pick and knowing how hard those are to get during the draft, and knowing that we felt like there were a bunch of really good outcomes for us with that first-round pick, we made the decision. But I can't tell you there are moments that we were putting a lot of religion's prayers together.
I normally ask questions that I kind of know the answer to first, so I'm rolling the dice here. Have you ever made a trade with the Dallas Cowboys before? Was that your first?
One last year, actually. Huh. We moved back from the end of the 4th round to the top of the 5th and got a next year 5th, and then we made one with Coach Reed when we traded back in the 1st round, and they took Anthony Spencer, and we moved back to the 2nd round and took Kevin Cobb.
So this has happened before. This wasn't truly, man bites dog in a way. But was that something that you already had planned and that you pushed the button on and called up the Cowboys once Devontae Smith was, available at 10? Or how does something like that work, Howie?
It's funny because in the week up to the draft, our PR guys who do an unbelievable job, Bob Lang, Brett Schosacker, they're unbelievable. They're telling me everyone thinks, you're making all these calls to moving up, and I'm going, yeah, definitely. Making a ton of calls. We're making a ton of calls to the teams in front of us and the teams behind us, and that's our job, right? Like, we got to figure out what the opportunities are going to be. So, you're making all those calls before the draft to figure out who's willing, who's open, so you're not starting from scratch on the clock when, all hell's breaking loose. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that. But
yes, you are. Absolutely, that works. Okay. And so that's how. But you don't exact the trade until you know that you get the call from NFL HQ to find out that the Broncos did not take the guy that you were willing to trade up to 2 spots to go get, right? That's how that works.
Right. I mean, right. You kind of wait for it. We get to pick about a minute before it's announced, and then you kind of spring into action. And I think the one thing we were certain of was that it wasn't going to be the lightest draft capital going from 2 slots in the history of the draft. So we knew that wasn't going to happen.
Well, it's interesting.
We knew it wasn't going to happen for a 6th and a pile of cheesesteaks.
Right. But hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.